Hey everyone, this is Tankenstein, coming to you live and direct from Illinois, the center of everywhere. Bring to you today a should you buy video and full review of the ME-262 A1U1. In this video, I'll be going over its stats, including the win/kill stats found on Thunderskill, its role, its pros and cons, my overall scores for the vehicle, and a final recommendation. There's a ton to go over in this video, but I promise that I will make it good. Remember, if you like this video, please subscribe. But without further ado, let's get going. So let's get started with the stats. In realistic, it has a top speed of around 865 kilometers per hour and around 900 kilometers per hour in arcade. It has about a 15.38 kilogram per second burst mass maximum, and that comes from two MG151 20mm cannons, two MK103 30mm cannons, and two MK108 30mm cannons. It has around a 28-second turn time in realistic and around 19.5 meter per second climb rate again in realistic. Now, according to Thunderskill, these are the win rates. In arcade, it sits at around 60.33% win rate with 3.15 frags per battle. In realistic, it's around 51.31 with 0.79 frags per battle. And in simulator, there are really just too few battles for the stats to have been generated. So I'm excluding that because it literally does not have the win stats on that. So let's get into the role and a good description of how to fly this plane. So the ME-262 A1U1 is an upgunned variant of the standard ME-262 A1A that we all know and really mostly love. As in, it flies basically the same but shoots a bit differently. So while having three different types of medium to large cannons is a great thing when it comes to battle, it can present a bit of a greater difficulty than you would otherwise have when you're attempting to research modules. So instead of one or even two different sets of cannons and ammo to research, you now need a third. On the other hand, as mentioned before, this can be a great advantage in battle once you do upgrade your cannons due to the vastly different uses for each type. Theoretically, you could equip the MK108s with armor-piercing ammunition, the 20mm MG151s, and 30mm MK103s with air or universal type ammunition, and this would give you a huge advantage versus anything outside of truly heavily armored vehicles. Though one might think that having an additional two cannons on the ME-262 should result in a much larger amount of burst, this is simply just not the case with the ME-262 A1U1, as it has 15.38 kilograms of burst as compared to 14.52 kilograms of burst with the standard layout of the ME-262 A1A and the C variants. This is because the MK108 fires at a rate of 380 rounds per minute as compared to 660 with the MK103. Although the 20mm MG151 cannons fire at a rate of 750 rounds per second, it is just barely enough to make the burst of this plane greater than the ME-262 A1A. Now, a big pro to having the gun layout of the A1U1 is that the MK108 cannons are significantly more accurate than the short-barreled MK103s and can tackle a greater variety of roles, from anti-ground to anti-air. While the MK108s fire more slowly than the MK103s, the 20mm MG151 cannons more than make up for this with a high fire rate and also usable anti-air ammunition, which makes this into a much more effective dogfighter, if it ever comes down to it. Ultimately, this plane's role is largely determined by the ammunition choices that you use for each of your three different types of cannons. But it would seem that the most logical choice is to have armor-piercing or anti-aircraft rounds on the MK108 cannons and some sort of universal/stealth or anti-air ammunition on the MK103 and also the MG151 cannons, as these variations would work best with the varying strengths of each gun type. Does the lowering of output from the 30mm cannons make this any less of an interceptor to go after heavy bombers? I wouldn't say that at all. This plane is possibly even better in that role, as just two of the 30mm MK103 cannons are more than powerful enough to rip apart most heavy bombers almost instantly. Add in two more accurate, albeit more slowly firing 30mm MK108 cannons, and possibly the best 20mm cannons from World War II in this plane, and you get the sheer punch of the MK103s the better chance to hit per shot with the MK-108s and from a longer, safer range, and a much better chance to hit with the 20mm MG-151 cannons, as well as having a great chance to set the enemy plane on fire. Once you take out the enemy bombers, you will have no difficulty transitioning to anti-fighter operations, as the 20mm are amazing in this role, as well as the standard 30mm MK-103s as well. Granted, you can actually land the hits. Now, this should be noted that by the time you're high enough in the sky after you've taken out the bombers, I would go for the high altitude bombers first, you should transition into a boom and zoom sort of tactic. Being that, again, you will be high enough in the clouds and you should be able to pick off at least a few enemies that are significantly lower than you at this point. This all being said, the A1U1 is first and foremost a bomber hunting interceptor, but functions much better in the dogfighter role than your standard ME-262s, largely due to the addition of the 20mm MG-151 cannons. Does adding 2 more guns make this plane enormously better? I wouldn't say so, but I will say that their addition makes this plane significantly more versatile and deadlier in a greater number of ways than the standard ME-262s could likely ever be. Ultimately, though, you still have to contend with a somewhat cumbersome, slow-to-turn, heavy jet fighter with extremely exposed engines and a low rate of climb. If you can master these issues that are present on essentially all ME-262s, except for possibly the C-Series because they have rockets attached to them, then you can make the ME-262 A1U1 into possibly the deadliest plane in your lineup. If being deadlier makes this plane any better, then I'll have to say that this is, in fact, a better plane than the standard ME-262 A1A. Interestingly, though, as a side note, the A1U1 shares the same exact armament as the 4.3 BR, or 4.7 if you play arcade, HE-217, which makes for an incredibly heavy fighter at a much lower BR. So this all being said, let's get into the pros and cons, and to that point I will start with the pros first. So the A1U1 has an incredibly heavy armament, especially for its BR. It's also got a very versatile armament insofar as the guns are concerned, and to that point, the third point that I would make is that it has excellent ammunition choices. These are essentially the fuel that really makes these guns especially potent and really just well-rounded, especially the MK-108s. It can dive at an extremely fast rate, and it also has good top-end speed. Additionally, it does have good high-speed handling, but it's not nearly the best in the game, especially as you get up in BRs, especially once you get up-tiered. And additionally, one thing that a lot of people kind of forget about the ME-262 is that it can land on its engines if the landing gears are destroyed. Now, for the cons, there are a few. It has somewhat limited ammo capacity due to the size of the ammo. It's a very large target with exposed engines compared to other jet fighters. It's got terrible acceleration, especially at the low end. Poor low-speed handling, and you should really just avoid all low-speed dogfighters at all costs. It has no secondary armaments like bombs or rockets, which can cause an issue when you want to go for maybe bases or just regular tanks if you don't feel that your ammunition can destroy that. And it will also oftentimes be targeted by faster, more nimble fighters. Additionally, it can get locked up in a high-speed dive, and it has no air brakes to really solve this issue. So insofar as my various scores relating to this plane are concerned, I'll give its armament first and foremost a 10 out of 10. And though I was initially going to rate this category a 9 or 9.5 out of 10, I feel that the 10 out of 10 is more than justified, being that the category judging versatility will critique its lack of secondary armaments later. That being said, as far as primary armaments are concerned, this plane is among the best in the game at any BR and has more than enough stopping power to take down any plane within reach. When you combine the penetrating power and accuracy of the MK-108s, the rate of fire of the MG-151s, and the sheer power of the MK-103, you have a plane that, with just its guns alone, can take out many armored ground targets, bombers, and all types of fighters. This plane has the guns and different ammo types for any job, and can also do those jobs better than almost any plane in the game. So for its speed, I'll give it a 6 out of 10, especially for its BR, and I believe this is a fair rating. There are other planes that are just as fast at 7.0, like the P-80, and then when you get to 7.3 with the F-84, you have a plane that is significantly faster than the ME-262. Ultimately, if it were just a bit faster, and more importantly, accelerated quicker and had a better rate of climb, then the ME-262 would have a significantly better rating in this category. Once you add the upgraded speed, rate of climb, and enhanced acceleration, then you get what is essentially the ME-262 series planes. For versatility, I have to give this plane a 7 out of 10. Now, while this plane is significantly more versatile than the other ME-262s in-game, minus maybe the A2A, which can carry bombs, the A1U1 still lacks secondary armaments. Even though the A1A has secondary armaments, they are all in the form of anti-aircraft rockets, of which are really just awesome. This said, its lack of secondary armaments is largely, but not entirely, made up for with the versatility of the guns on board, which with the long-barreled Mk-108 serving as the versatile heavy hitter that can go for air or ground, the Mk-103 is the bomber destroyer, and the 20mm MG-151s, which can go for either bombers or fighters. It really just has a strong anti-air aspect to it, but can much more effectively take out ground targets, as well as more effectively take out a greater range of air targets as well. For its handling and agility, I have to give this a 4 out of 10. For a plane of this weight and relative lack of power compared to other jets, it actually handles quite well at higher speeds. Once you get down to lower speeds, however, it loses all semblance of handling and cannot regain its speed for quite some time. Though it's certainly not the worst, this plane is nowhere near the best when it comes to handling and should be treated as a boom and zoom weapon over almost anything else. For fun factor, I have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I feel that the score is relative to how fun the standard ME-262 is. For me, much of my fun from this game, especially when flying the ME-262, comes from the historical aspect of playing it. This said, the incredibly powerful armaments and versatility of this plane makes it very fun, but your score for how fun this plane is will largely depend on how much fun you have with this type of plane in general. If you do not enjoy the standard A1A, then you will likely not enjoy this plane either. For cost effectiveness, I have to give this plane an 8 out of 10. Ultimately, this is a very effective plane to purchase because even though it does not cost Golden Eagles and does not give premium bonuses, you will find that you will earn tons of RP and Silver Lions if you end up becoming proficient with this plane. Overall, as a combination of all the scores listed previously, I have to give this a 42.5 out of 60. Is this the best plane in the game? No. Is this the most versatile? No. Is it even the fastest in its BR bracket? By no means. You know what it is though? Quite possibly the most heavy-handed, ham-fisted, hammer of a plane in the game. With the exception of possibly the F-89B, this is the last plane at almost any BR that you'd want to face in a head-on. It simply has too many ways it can kill an enemy. Going after bombers? Check. Going after ground vehicles? Check. Doing some dogfighting? If not for the lack of agility, I'd say double check. The A1U1, though slow to accelerate and not the best handler, is easily one of the scariest planes to see coming for you, and it makes its reputation known right as soon as planes start seeing it in any match. And for my recommendation, now I know that this is not a premium or event vehicle, and I know that it hardly qualifies as anything more special than a regular tech tree vehicle. I get that. But this is a plane that you have to deliberately decide to research and spend hundreds of thousands of Silver Lions on just to get the chance to fly it in a match. You have to forego the opportunity to research any of the other great squad vehicles already available in-game just to get this vehicle. That being said, is it worth getting into an active squad for? Yes. Is it worth stepping up your game and contributing to the unlocking of this plane? Yes. Is this plane going to win you matches? No, but it will make it much easier. My final recommendation is to join a squad if you're not already in one, immediately start researching this plane, and then buy it as soon as you can. This plane, though a bit slow and heavy, is like controlling a sledgehammer. It's not surgical like the P-80 and not nimble like the Vampire, but you can smash any opponent in his mouth and take his lunch money with this thing, even more so than you would do with the standard ME-262. Is it worth it for that reason alone? You bet your stars it is. Either way, thank you so much for watching my video, guys. Remember, please comment, like, and subscribe, and press the notification bell if you like my video. That being said, thank you guys so much. This is Tankenstein. Not saying goodnight, just saying have a great night, a great day, and a great whatever it is that you're doing. Take care, everyone.